What if I told you that the person you can't stop thinking about feels something they can't explain either, and that the connection you're questioning right now is quietly shaping both of your lives in ways you don't even see yet? Before we go deeper, take 1 second, subscribe to the channel and like this video, because what you're about to hear might change how you understand love, timing, and connection forever. Now listen carefully. Most men believe that if two people are meant to be together, everything should feel easy, smooth, almost effortless. But psychology tells a very different story. Real connection, the kind that lingers, that pulls you back even when you try to move on, doesn't behave like a fairy tale. It behaves like tension, like distance, like confusion mixed with clarity. Here's the truth no one says out loud. When two people are truly meant to be together, there is always one undeniable thing that happens. They cannot fully let each other go. Not emotionally, not mentally, not even when life separates them physically. You might stop talking, you might date other people, you might even convince yourself it's over. But somehow, they remain in your thoughts in the quiet moments, and more importantly, you remain in theirs. This isn't obsession, it's not weakness, it's something deeper, rooted in how the human mind forms attachment when it recognizes emotional alignment. Your brain doesn't hold on to just anyone. It filters, it forgets, it moves on quickly from most people. But when it doesn't, when someone keeps resurfacing in your mind without effort, that's not random. That's unfinished emotional circuitry. And here's where it becomes uncomfortable. Because if they feel it too, and most of the time they do, then why isn't it working right now? Why the distance? Why the silence? Because being meant to be is not about perfect timing. It's about inevitable return. And right now, whether you realize it or not, something is building beneath the surface of both your lives. Something neither of you can fully control. And once it reaches a certain point, everything changes. You've probably asked yourself this question more than once. If this connection is real, then why does it feel so uncertain, so unstable, almost like it appears and disappears without warning? That confusion you feel is not a sign that something is wrong. It's actually the strongest signal that something meaningful is happening beneath the surface. Because when two people are truly meant to be together, the connection doesn't move in a straight line. It moves in cycles. You come close, then something pulls you apart. You reconnect, then distance returns again. And every time it happens, it feels heavier, deeper, harder to ignore. This isn't coincidence. This is psychological mirroring. Both of you are evolving, but not always at the same speed. And that creates friction. One of you pulls closer when the other pulls away. One of you starts to understand the connection just as the other begins to fear it. It's like an invisible rhythm neither of you consciously agreed to, but both of you are following. Now here's what most men misunderstand. They think distance means loss. They think silence means disinterest. They assume that if she's not consistently present, then the connection must not be real. But real psychological bonds don't disappear under pressure. They intensify. Distance doesn't weaken them, it exposes them. Because when someone is truly significant to you, absence doesn't create peace, it creates awareness. You notice the silence, you feel the shift, you start questioning everything, not because you're weak, but because your mind is trying to resolve something unresolved. And she's going through her own version of that process, even if she doesn't show it the same way, even if she distracts herself, dates someone else, or pretends it doesn't matter. The emotional imprint doesn't just vanish. That's not how deep attachment works. And this is where things become difficult for you, because you're standing in the middle of uncertainty, trying to decide whether to hold on or let go, trying to understand if this is real, or if you're just stuck. But what you're experiencing right now isn't random confusion. It's the tension between connection and timing. And most people walk away right here. Not because the connection wasn't real, but because they didn't understand what it was becoming. Let me tell you something most men never get taught about attraction and emotional bonds. People don't only fall for looks, timing, or words. They fall for emotional impact. And emotional impact doesn't fade easily. That's why you can meet someone new, have conversations, even try to replace the feeling, and still find your mind drifting back to one specific person. Not because your life is empty, but because your nervous system remembers them differently. Now, I want you to be honest with yourself. There is at least one person in your life who didn't just pass through. They left a trace. A feeling that doesn't fully dissolve no matter how much time passes. And psychology explains this through something called emotional imprinting. When a connection hits you at the right emotional depth, vulnerability, excitement, uncertainty, hope, all at once, your brain stores it differently than casual relationships. It becomes a reference point, a comparison standard, even if you don't want it to be. And here is where it gets even more powerful. When two people imprint on each other at the same time, something unusual happens. They don't just remember each other, they reactivate each other. Meaning even long after separation, small triggers can bring the entire emotional state back instantly. A song, a place, a memory, even a random thought at night when everything is quiet. And suddenly, it feels like they are close again, even when they are not. Now listen carefully. This is why men often get confused, because they think if she cared, she would stay consistent. But emotional reality doesn't always express itself through consistency. Sometimes it expresses itself through resistance, through distance, through timing that feels wrong but emotionally feels unavoidable. And the most dangerous misunderstanding is believing that silence equals absence of feeling, when in reality, silence often means internal processing. She is not necessarily gone from the connection. She may simply be trying to control the emotional intensity of it, just like you are. And this creates a silent, parallel experience between two people who may not even be speaking anymore, but are still psychologically connected in ways neither of them fully admits. And this is where the question becomes heavier. If both people are still feeling something, why does it still not work? And the answer is not what most people expect. Because the truth is, connection alone is never enough. You can feel everything with someone, the pull, the chemistry, the emotional depth that feels almost rare, and still watch it fall apart in real time. Not because it wasn't real, but because both of you were not ready at the same level of awareness. This is the part that hurts the most, and also the part that most men resist accepting. Being meant to be doesn't mean being ready at the same time, and readiness is everything. You might have understood her value when she was still confused about yours, or she might have felt deeply connected while you were still distracted, unsure, or emotionally unavailable. And by the time both of you start to see things clearly, life has already created distance. Different environments, different routines, different people entering the picture. Now here's where psychology becomes brutally honest. Timing is not random. It's shaped by personal growth. If either of you still carries unresolved fears, fear of commitment, fear of vulnerability, fear of losing control, the connection will not stabilize, no matter how strong it feels. Because deep connections don't just bring comfort, they expose everything you've been avoiding within yourself, your insecurities, your emotional patterns, your past wounds. And most people, instead of facing those things, they step back. Not because they don't care, but because they feel overwhelmed. Now imagine this happening on both sides. Two people feeling something real, but both being pushed into self-confrontation they're not prepared for. What happens? Distance, confusion, missed opportunities, and a silent question that keeps repeating in your mind. What if this could have worked? But here's what you need to understand. If the connection is truly meaningful, it doesn't end here. It transforms. Because time doesn't just separate people, it develops them. And while you think everything is falling apart, something else is quietly happening beneath the surface. Both of you are being forced to grow, individually, away from each other, until one critical moment arrives. A moment where everything you didn't understand before suddenly makes sense. And that moment doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't come with a warning or a perfect setup. It happens quietly, almost unexpectedly. One day, something shifts inside you. You stop romanticizing the past and start understanding it. You begin to see your own mistakes without defensiveness. You recognize where you held back, where you hesitated, where you didn't show up fully. And at the same time, something inside you becomes stronger, more grounded, less desperate for validation, more clear about what you actually want. This is growth, real growth. Not the kind you talk about, the kind you feel in your decisions. Now here's the part most people never realize. While this shift is happening in you, something similar is happening in her world too. Not necessarily at the same exact moment, but along the same path. Because when a connection is deeply mutual, growth tends to mirror itself over time. She begins to reflect, to question, to reevaluate what she felt, what she lost, what she walked away from. And this is where the one thing always begins to unfold. Realignment, not forced, not planned, but natural. You may run into each other again, or she might reach out. Or you feel an undeniable pull to reconnect, without fear this time. And when that moment comes, it feels different. Not because the feelings are new, but because both of you are. The same connection, but without the same confusion. The same attraction, but without the same emotional chaos. And suddenly, conversations flow differently. There is less ego, less fear, more honesty, more presence. Now listen carefully. This is the difference between a connection that fades and one that was meant to evolve. Fading connections lose emotional charge over time. Evolving connections disappear, but return stronger, because they were never finished. They were paused. And what brings them back is not luck, it's alignment. Two people finally reaching a level of emotional maturity where the connection no longer feels overwhelming. It feels right. And when that happens, you don't question it the same way anymore. Because now, you understand what it took to get there. But here's where I need to challenge you. Because this is the point where most men make the same mistake again. They believe that when the connection comes back, it will automatically work. That this time, everything will fall into place without effort. And that belief quietly destroys what could have finally become real. Because even when two people realign, the past doesn't just disappear. It lingers in subtle ways, in hesitation, in unspoken expectations, in the fear of repeating what once went wrong. And if you don't become aware of this, you will recreate the same outcome with a different version of yourself. Now listen closely. The difference between a missed connection and a lasting one is not feeling, it's behavior. Can you communicate clearly this time, even when it feels uncomfortable? Can you stay present instead of pulling away when things get intense? Can you lead with emotional stability instead of reacting from old patterns? Because she is watching, not just what you say, but how you show up now. And she's asking herself one silent question. Is this still the same man? Or has he actually changed? And you should be asking yourself the same about her. Growth is not proven through words. It's proven through consistency. Through how both of you handle tension, disagreement, vulnerability. Through whether the connection feels calmer, not just exciting. Because intensity alone is not a sign of something healthy. In fact, uncontrolled intensity is often what caused the separation in the first place. So if you meet again, and everything feels overwhelming, chaotic, emotionally unstable, that's not fate pulling you together, that's history repeating itself. But if it feels grounded, clear, still deep but no longer confusing, then you're no longer dealing with potential, you're dealing with readiness. And readiness changes everything. Because now, the connection doesn't control you, you understand it, you move with it, instead of being pulled by it. And that's when something rare begins to happen. The connection stops feeling like a question and starts becoming a decision. And this is where everything you've been trying to understand finally becomes simple, but not easy. Because real love is never just about finding the right person. It's about becoming the version of yourself who can actually hold that connection without losing yourself in it. If two people are meant to be together, this is the one thing that always happens. They don't stay the same person they were when they first met. They evolve, separately, and then, if timing allows, together again. But here's the part you need to hear clearly. Not every strong connection is meant to be permanent in the way you imagine. Some connections are meant to awaken you, to expose your emotional patterns, to show you what you ignore in yourself, and to push you into becoming more grounded, more aware, more emotionally intelligent. And yes, sometimes that same connection returns, but it only becomes stable when both people stop operating from old wounds, stop chasing reassurance, stop reacting from fear of loss. Stop confusing intensity with compatibility, because real compatibility is not chaos. It's calm understanding, it's emotional safety, it's clarity without confusion. Now ask yourself honestly, when you think about that person, is it truly peaceful in your mind? Or is it still emotionally charged, uncertain, unresolved? Because that answer tells you everything. And if it's still unresolved, then the lesson is not over yet. Not about them, about you, about how you love, how you choose, how you respond when emotions are strong but clarity is missing. And here is the truth most men eventually discover. The moment you stop chasing what is unclear and start building emotional stability within yourself, everything else starts to shift. Sometimes that person comes back, sometimes they don't. But either way, you are no longer the same man who needed confusion to feel connection. You become someone who recognizes real love without anxiety attached to it. And that is the real ending of this story. Not whether you end up with them, but whether you finally understand yourself enough not to lose yourself again. Because when two people are truly meant to be together, it doesn't feel like confusion forever. It eventually feels like clarity, and when clarity arrives, you won't need to ask anymore. You'll already know.